Good afternoon and welcome to a new episode of Travel Experience Gone Wrong, the show where we uncover those travel anecdotes we will rarely forget. Today we have a story that will resonate with many, a nightmare with layovers, lost luggage and broken promises. In our virtual studio we are joined by three guests. We have Alejandra and Laura, two travelers who live an unforgettable experience with Poly Airways. And we also have Dayana, a representative from Poly Airways, who is here to give the company's version. Welcome to all three of you. Let's get straight to the point. Alejandra, you are the protagonist of this story. Please tell us what was the original travel plan and at what point did everything start to go wrong?
Well, Valentina, the plan was perfect, or so we thought. Laura and I had booked a flight from Bogota to Madrid with a layover in Lisbon with Poly Airways months in advance. We were so excited, but on the day of the trip, when we arrived at the airport, we saw the first red flag. On the board, our flight to Lisbon was already showing a 2 hour delay.
A delay from the very start. Laura, what did you do at that moment? Did you look for information?
Of course, we did. We immediately went to the Poly Airways counter. We asked the agent what the reason for delay was, and she told us it was due to a logistic issue at the departure airport, and that we shouldn't worry.
Yes, but I don't worry, was all they kept saying. The hours passed and they gave no further explanations. The worst part was we had already written to our family in Madrid telling them that our arrival time would change.
Dayana, we enter Poly Airways territory. What do the records say? What was the real reason for that initial 2 hour delay that later grew?
Good afternoon. First of all, I'm very sorry that Alejandra and Laura went through that situation of uncertainty. Reviewing the case, I can confirm that the aircraft was supposed to operate. Their flight had a minor technical issues on a previous journey, which created a domino effect. All ground staff had not been properly informed with all details. Hence, the generic response they received, we fully acknowledge that failure in our internal communication.
A failure in communication that had consequences. Alejandra, the plane finally took off, but the problems were just beginning, right?
Exactly, when we landed in Lisbon, we ran like crazy to the gate for our connecting flight to Madrid, but the plane had already closed its doors and was pushing back from the gate. We saw it with our own eyes. It was desperate. The agent in Lisbon calmly informed us that the next available flight with Poly Airways was in 28 hours.
It was the last straw. They didn't offer us a hotel or meal vouchers, nothing. Alejandro asked the supervisor if that was all they could do for us, and she simply stated that the policy did not cover delays for technical reasons. We spent the night in the uncomfortable airport chairs. We had paid for a comfortable trip and ended up like stranded castaways.
Dayana, this is a very delicate part. Two passengers stranded in a foreign airport for over a day without assistance. How does Poly Airways justify this treatment?
There is no justification, Valentina. I deeply regret hearing that. I must be clear. Our policy does cover accommodation and meals in case of prolonged delays caused by the airlines. It seems the staff in Lisbon had misinterpreted the protocol and applied an incorrect directive. It is a serious mistake, and I assure you that the TAP team has already been retained. On behalf of Poly Airways, I offer a formal apology to Alejandra and Laura for this negligence.
The story doesn't end there. You finally made it to Madrid, but your ordeal continued. Laura, what happened with the luggage?
When we got to Madrid, we went to the baggage carousel and waited. Nothing. We went to the lost luggage counter and the agent confirmed, after checking the system, that our suitcase had not left Lisbon. It was the last thing we could take.
Exactly, we had specifically asked them in Lisbon about our bags, and they had assured us that they would be on the next flight. It was a lie. By that point, we had already had to buy underwear and toothbrushes, everything, with the money we had saved to enjoy Madrid.
Dayana, another critical failure. How is it possible that the luggage didn't follow the passengers, especially when they were revoked on a later flight?
They are absolute right. This weakest point of our service in this case. The baggage tracking system had not been updated correctly after the passenger flight change. It was a systemic error. However, I want to clarify that our logistic teams in Lisbon had already located the luggage 20 hours later and set it on the first direct flight to Madrid. It arrived 36 hours after they did. It's no consolation, I know, but at least they were recovered.
We've researched the outcome. With all these problems, what final compensation did you receive, Alejandra? Were you at all satisfied?
After formal complaints on social media and emails, Poly Airways finally offered us a 30% refund of the ticket value and a voucher for the expenses we had to make at the airport. Although I appreciate the gesture, the truth is that the stress and the loss of 2 vacation days are priceless. They said it was the maximum compensation their policy allowed.
Dayana, one final opportunity. Any final thoughts for our audience who might be thinking of flying with Poly Airways?
I want to thank Alejandra and Laura again for their favorites in telling this story. Their experience, although painful, is invaluable. I assure you that at Poly Airways we have already implemented a new communication protocol between crew and ground staff. And we have improved crisis management training for our staff. We don't want this happen to anyone again. We will continue working to regain our passenger trust.
With that promise of improvement and a compensation that perhaps doesn't quite make up for the bad experience, we close this story. To our audience, we invite you to share your own travel experience gone wrong in our comments. Thank you so much to Alejandra, Laura, and Dayana for this much needed conversation. Until next time, bye.